4, 3, 2, 1. You're locked into Auto Glass Digest Talk
with your hosts, Jamie Browning and Katie Stubbs. The auto glass industry's #1 podcast.
Welcome to AGD Talk. I'm Jamie Browning. Today we are joined by none other than Doug.
No nicknames.
No nicknames? All right.
Nicknames.
Doug Clarke, President and CEO of ADAS Services.
Very good.
How was the trip over?
It's good. Good. Any day's a good day here, right?
I think so. How do you like the new studio?
Looking good.
I've
Very nice.
As long as
Glad you didn't call me to help build it, but very nice.
as long as nothing falls on us, I think we're going to be okay. And if something does fall on us, then I don't know why you were here.
That's good.
I don't think the insurance covers that.
Won't be the last time, I'm sure.
But so you have kind of done something that the industry has needed for a very long time. And when I say a very long, I've been talking about this for literally years, but even before I started talking about it, it needed to be here. So you're tackling the whole calibration industry, it feels like, and trying to put everything into one source.
Yeah, so it was just a few years ago for me where it really came to kind of the front of what I was doing. I was a little bit in the repair business and, doing some diagnostic work, had a long history in the auto glass business, so I had a lot of people kind of calling on me for my opinion.
And I think that's what kind of was a good combination for you. So you had an automotive repair facility.
Did.
So you were scanning, you knew a lot about scan tools.
Yeah. I mean, we've been calibrating parts on cars for a long time.
Right.
It's something we used to have to do consistently.
And started in the auto glass industry in the 90s. Right? Late 80s, maybe 90s. You can,
I appreciate that.
People know how old you are. And for
Okay,
everyone that doesn't know, Doug actually got me my first auto glass job.
Yeah.
So it's his fault. Everything that happens, it's his fault.
And he still has me on his podcast. It's amazing.
That's right. And that's how you know true friendship. If you get someone in the auto glass industry and they still talk to you almost 27, 28 years later, then
that's right.
You're pretty good.
Nothing like starting auto glass in the salvage business, right?
Oh, hey, that was the best thing ever because I could break stuff.
That's right.
And then just go out to the junkyard and take another one off and see how to break it.
No better way to learn.
And that's one of the stories I tell is my first piece of auto glass I ever put in by myself was the back glass on the Buick Century that blew out and the butyl tape stuck it to the trunk so it didn't fall out and break.
Being held by the defrost wires.
Yeah, defrost wires and butyl stuck right on the trunk there.
That's good.
But so with this, it seems like, first of all, we've been trying to do this for a while, and you're like your frequent flyer miles have got to be like racking up, but I know you enjoy doing that and like traveling and talking to all these people.
Sure.
So what is kind of like one of your main focus or priorities right now?
Yeah, right now, so the travel is a little heavier now because it's not like everybody and their neighbors doing this. So to find folks that have any kind of years into this, you really kind of have to look for them and find them and go to them. So what I've found is primarily right now, the folks that have been in the development of the tools are the people who have been around the longest trying to create something for all of us to use. So the relationship with them has been probably something I've been working on the hardest over the last 2 years because although I'm doing a lot of calibrations, having kind of the resources has been the challenge. Like you can figure it out, but it sure would be nice to have somebody who's already figured it out kind of give you some hints into the process.
Well, that's, one of the things, and we even spoke about this a little bit before you actually even like jumped into this, and it was like, there's really no information out there. Like you can talk to some of the biggest guys in the auto glass industry and no one knows anything about calibration.
Right.
And, we were talking, and what was one of the first cars, like the Infiniti or Mercedes, back in the 80s?
So it started a long time ago with these real generic radar sensors, but really like the late 2000s, 2010 is when some of the European cars really started to push that technology forward.
Yeah, and I would say probably the last 3 cars I've rented to go out of town to do trips have all had it. And I love that stuff. Like my niece just recently had a rental car and she's like, it makes these noises. And like she's like, I was like, it's actually cool if you take
your niece is obviously young.
Yeah.
Talk to anybody that's up in age a little bit and they talk about that aggravating buzzer that keeps going off.
I love that, dude. I love that stuff. I had it was a 2017 Suburban or Tahoe, and I just let it drive by itself for a little while on the interstate, and man, it was just right there. So, but yeah, I mean, lack of information, misinformation. You seem to be tackling it all from like the tool side, training, talking about it. I mean,
yeah. So the one thing I kind of had to get over a little bit was the idea that, the people say, hey, you want to be an expert at something, you got to spend 5 or 10 years, 10,000 hour rule, that type of thing. And what I learned early on in this is that even though I'm probably not even 25% there, I'm probably have a lot more information than most folks. So trying to create not only some channels to get that information quicker, but also trying to create some channels to get that information out there to others so they don't have to spend the last 2 years reeling for information.
Correctly, and dispelling some of the myths. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you've performed over 1,000 calibrations.
Yeah, for sure. Mostly windshield camera calibration. So we're talking about forward cameras.
Right.
But yeah, we're probably in the 1,700 range by now.
Wow. And now you're actually getting into the radar, right?
Yeah, kind of, again, a whole nother challenge. Where do you get the support tools? Where do you get the service information? So really, while we're really clicking along with the front windshield cameras, and we're kind of testing out all the rest. And just recently some tools came out that can kind of help solve that from an aftermarket standpoint.
Right.
But trying to find all those from the OEM and going to dealers saying, hey, I see this part in your service information. I need to order it to do this. And they say, we don't even know what it is. We can't get it. So, overcoming that type of stuff.
Probably, it's been about 1.5 years ago, we had the pleasure or honor of being invited up to Automotive Glazing USA 2017. And the people there from Europe were just amazed that dealerships here really had no idea about calibration.
Yeah.
And it's still, that's still somewhat the case. Now they're catching up, but it's like the dealership doesn't even know about this stuff. Yeah,
and Europeans are surprised because their dealers are really experts at the glass and calibration business. And really their model over there is that they handle it, from start to finish. And glass companies over there can rely on that, and they get good service with that. Plus, the whole OEM purchasing is different in Europe. So a lot of OEM glass is purchased. A lot of dealers are used for that. And, of course, then the dealers use for any of the mechanical or calibration stuff.
Yeah, and I'm still finding that people from dealerships locally are just not, I guess I can't throw someone under the bus because it's not their job to be informed. It's someone else. They're higher up to inform them about it.
Yeah,
so.
I think, being in the repair business for so many years, in the automotive repair side, it seems like, and we've all had that kind of feeling about the auto repair business. Like, am I being told the truth? Do I really need this air filter? Do I need this? Do I need that? And I think the natural thing for the automotive repair business is it's like they're not allowed not to know something. So instead of saying, I don't know, let me get the correct answer, they kind of just, each person puts in their own opinion.
Well, that's kind of like the shocking thing the entire auto glass industry is guilty of. Over, if you heard people speak in the past, it was like, we just don't know.
Yeah.
We do, and it's like.
Sure. Well, and then you're relying on people who don't know and then are just going to make it up. So really that's where the challenge then gets put back in your lap, because it's like, they're not doing it right. So what are you going to do about it? I mean, are you going to enable that behavior knowing it's wrong, or are you just going to figure this out yourself? And that's where the auto glass business really was challenged in the last few years.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that when we first started talking about this, you were just so like, I only want to put stuff out if I know it's, factual and, keep everyone informed, dispel the myths. Like, what are some of the big myths that you run into mostly now when people?
Well, we were just talking about the dealership. So you talk about a myth. I mean, really, it's just the idea that your challenge is going to be, each dealership might say, or each person that can provide a calibration service to you, they may not look at their own service information. You know, so we have it all the time where we'll call and say, we need to make an appointment for this particular manufacturer. And they'll say, well, it doesn't need to be done. Or if you take it there, they'll drive it around the parking lot or something. You know, so it was kind of in our court where we couldn't actually physically do that, but we could subscribe to their service information, and we could see that their manufacturer says you must do this after windshield replacement.
Right.
So I don't know that that's so much as a myth as just like one of the consistent challenges with that. And probably if you want to talk myth, I mean, the auto glass business really just being scared of this process, you know, that's, trust me, you know, I understand the first time you plug a computer into a car, it's a little bit challenging, but it isn't rocket science. I mean, the auto glass industry is a smart group of people, can definitely figure it out. It's just different.
I've always said, if you look at the core auto glass guys and girls, they can figure out stuff that no one else can. Like, because we run into different cars every day. People break stuff. You can, auto glass people are like the MacGyvers.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
You know what I mean? So they definitely have the mechanical capability. And when you put something that's essentially a small computer in front of some people, they kind of freak out a little bit. But I mean, really the good systems just kind of like walk you through it.
They do. And probably a good myth to dispel in your head is that, oh, if I do something wrong, I'm gonna really cause damage to this car. It's not the case. I mean, you really can get in there, you can move around. I mean, I'm not suggesting going in and calibrating the electronic control unit or anything in the car, but you know what your limitations are. You can go in and look around and see what's going on, and it's really not that difficult. You know, it's part of what we want to do is, you know, just kind of eliminate that learning curve of all these things you need to be concerned about. So hopefully it'll help.
And the system tells you yes or no.
It does. I mean,
it,
sometimes there's not enough information. It's never going to lead you wrong. I mean, at the very worst, it's just going to leave you kind of wondering a little bit. But then there's always something backs that up. For instance, if you're left looking at the tool and you think, oh, what happened here? You usually have some type of indicator on the dash, and you always have the ability to test drive it, make sure the system's functioning properly.
Right. So are you running into any challenges when you're doing like a static or a dynamic? What are the two biggest challenges you run into there?
Yeah. So because the auto glass industry is mobile.
And first, let me, for those that are really new to the industry, explain what a static and a dynamic is.
So basically, statics are when you calibrate in a closed environment with a particular target provided by that manufacturer. And you have to set that target up to the exact specifications they tell you in their service information.
Within millimeters.
Within millimeters.
We're talking lasers, levels, but don't let that scare you.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah, you're not going to cut anything in half with these lasers or anything.
With that laser.
Yeah, exactly. So when you get these things set up from a static standpoint, you know, you really don't want to be dealing with natural light. You know, you don't want to be out in a parking lot. You need to have level ground. So statics kind of require the indoor atmosphere, sometimes a little more space than others, but you're really aiming towards a specific target laid out in a specific spot.
Right, and that would be the bigger investment of the two.
That would be, yeah. The dynamic portion of it really is, it's funny, I always say I'd love to have dynamics. Well, I'm near an interstate with well-painted roads, no snow, good weather, and you know, I'm always shocked when I hear people say, I'd much rather do a static. And you know, I've got some friends I've been helping for a while in Canada. They'd much rather do statics because snow's on the ground 6 months a year. So, you know, the dynamics, you enable the learn mode with the computer, you drive it, it kind of dynamically learns. So it's utilizing road signs and different objects like vehicles and stuff to help it relearn the process.
Right, and the first dynamic that I ever saw was riding with you, and it was just, I don't know how to explain it. I thought it was going to be something totally different. Yeah. And it was just, we drove, it said it was finished, and we were done.
Nothing to it. People ask me all the time, how hard are these? And they're always easy when they work.
Right.
You know, that's the thing. When it works, it's easy.
And when it doesn't work is where the experience of having close to 2,000 calibration comes in, because you are like, some of these things are catching you for like hours at a time, then you figure it out, and then boom.
Try to share that information, save other people. I mean, certainly we've now been able to see the problems over and over again. So we can kind of proactively solve these, avoid these from happening.
Right.
So there was a good solid 6 months of kind of like, is this really going to be the way it is?
And, I feel when people say that they're scared of getting into it, or if you're not scared, at least a little bit, then you probably shouldn't do it. Because if you're a little bit scared, it means you care.
Sure.
If you just go in there and throw it out but it's just like the first time you walk up to a windshield, it kicks everyone's butt, whether people will, it did. Like if you're honest, it did.
Right.
And then 6 months, a year later, you're in there like boom, boom, you know everything that's going on, for that particular one. And it's just, practice, repetition.
I agree. The only thing that I find different from my installing days to my calibration days is there's just a few things that are still left to the unknown. So you're kind of relying on what's happening inside the computers, and none of us are ever going to know all the things that are going on in there from a programming standpoint. But that is kind of, for me, it's always a challenge because I want to know everything that's happening so that if I have a problem, I know exactly how to fix it. So some of the unknowns really kind of get me sometimes, but for the most part, it always comes down to you kind of compartmentalize your problems, right? If it's a static and you might have some lighting issues, is it a setup issue? If it's dynamic, do you have bad weather? Do you have not well-marked roads? Or the most common problem, which is surprising, I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit, is just, the orientation of the camera is going to mess with any calibration, be it static or dynamic. Yeah,
absolutely. And in fact, there's one particular drive that you did involving a Honda. Mm-hmm. You definitely have to hear this story. This story will kind of set you straight, and we're actually going to talk about that after we come back from break. But you definitely want to stick around for this one because it's out of all the stories and everything we've talked about, this one by far sticks out the most.
Yep.
So we'll be right back.
Do you want to know how easy and effective advertising on Auto Glass Digest can be? Visit our website to find out how you can reach our audience throughout our various platforms and original video series.
Welcome back to Auto Glass Digest Talk.
So before the break, we kind of teased a little bit about this Honda story.
Yeah.
So tell us about this, because for me, this is just like one of the most fascinating things about ADAS that actually dispels some of the myths about people saying, not every car needs to be calibrated. You just put it in, and if it works, it works.
Yeah. Well, speaking about this particular car in general, I mean, it really taught me that, not every car does need calibration, but who's going to roll the dice? Because if 5 out of 100 have to be done that did what this Honda did to me, then you better be calibrating everything that leaves your shop. And this, in this case, it actually happened to a shop about 4 months after it happened to me. It's now well documented from a shop in Canada where the actual customer is.
I saw that. That's a lawsuit now, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, when we started calibrating, the Hondas and the Acuras just seemed to have not necessarily a problem, but when you mount them, you can make a mistake. And if you mount these things improperly, from the looking at them, they look fine. Well, we're coming in after the install.
And you're talking about the actual camera to the glass.
Camera to the bracket. Right. So there's a certain way it goes in, and it's very easy to kind of get it pinched in there a little bit, holds it a little bit crooked. And what's happening is obviously it's not seeing properly. So this was a car that I picked up to take it to go calibrate because it required some space. So I had to take it to another location.
Right.
And as I was driving it over, of course, I'm flipping the buttons on and off, trying to learn as much as I can. In this particular car, it didn't just have the warning when you left the lane. It actually had the lane keep assist, which in Hondas, it's actually lane centering. So even say lane keep assist in a Suburban,
right,
when you get to the edge, it bumps you back in.
Right.
Whereas Honda's trying to take it on where they're saying, hey, we see the lines, we're dividing that in half, and we're keeping you going down the center. So when they have lane centering as a part of that, what happened in this particular case is the camera was off, so it thought the lane was elsewhere, and it tried to center me in the lane it thought it was, and it was driving me off the road. So I took a video of that, obviously, because that's the,
right,
that's the really kind of like, this needs to be done. So what I ended up finding that was fascinating, and these are kind of a lot of the things when you talk about myths that I'm starting to get through. So when I got the car to the calibration center, I went to calibrate and it just failed. And it wasn't like it was close enough where it could kind of shift where it's aiming.
Right.
If it's mounted improperly and it's looking the wrong way, it fails the calibration. You have to repair whatever's causing that.
But there were
So
no
that's what
warning
happened.
lights to
No
tell
warning
you.
lights.
Yeah.
No. That's definitely a myth to dispel. There are absolutely no check engine lights, any codes or anything like that when it comes to a camera that's not aimed properly.
Right. Which is scary because when certain people say, I put the windshield in, no lights came on.
Right.
We even drove it and it
Sure.
seemed to be fine.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
a big decision for just anyone to make.
And I personally have not seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen any OEM say you don't need to calibrate after a windshield replacement.
Correct. It's across the board.
Everyone says if the windshield's replaced, it gets calibrated.
Everyone says that, and if they didn't say it in the beginning, they are saying it now.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, that's just something that's extremely important that people need to know is.
Well, in the beginning, it was a little confusing because some of the manufacturers weren't necessarily taking this as seriously, and they're in lab environments with OEM glass that came off the same assembly line and if it's installed by an engineer in a closed environment with an OEM glass, then maybe we don't have to calibrate. So what ended up happening was real world. And, we got a lot of great installers in this industry, but, we got different brands of glass, different bracket placement. And quickly, if they didn't require it in the beginning, they have supplemented their service information to say they require it now.
Right. And what we're talking about here is millimeters. I mean,
Yeah, you can't see it to the eye.
Yeah, people, if you dig deep into how that camera works with taking the color spectrum, and I mean, like,
Yep.
you are not going to be able to like look at this or not calibrate. I mean, you need the tools.
Sure, you do. And one of the things, again, just to kind of hit on this point a little bit, I'm not an engineer, so I'd love to speak to one that wrote software for this one day.
Good luck. Good luck.
Right. But it's been amazing what I have found over the last 1,500 or so calibrations is that you're really calibrating to fail. You're not calibrating to adjust where it's looking.
Right.
And ultimately you do end up adjusting that, but it's not done by like magically taking the beam and moving it. It's what I have found in all situations. I've never found one that wasn't like this. If the camera's mounted improperly and it's clearly looking somewhere else, it's going to fail the calibration, and you have to physically fix the orientation of the camera to then have it aim and pass.
Well, that's it just seems, and it's it's kind of easy to, on some of them, not to put the camera back on.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean,
very easy.
I mean, or when you put the cover back on, I mean,
Knock it
it's
off,
just,
sure.
I mean, literally millimeters,
Yeah.
people. I mean, like it's.
Yep.
So that's why it's so important. Now, one of the things that I appreciate you stressing and talking about when you do talk to people is it has to be calibrated.
It does. I mean, I've proved it over and over again. And like I said, I mean, if I did 1,500, maybe 1,300 of them didn't need to be done.
Right.
But again, I mean, who's going to take that risk?
Well, we're getting ready to find out probably soon about that lawsuit and how it plays out. But, maybe they were just using the information that they had.
Sure.
And it's, kind of like using adhesive properly. I mean, if you were never trained or taught, you just don't know. But it's your responsibility to know in the end when you're standing in front of a judge or a jury. And,
everybody's always waiting for the lawsuit to happen to somebody else before they.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know any better before so and so was sued in this other state, and it's like the information's there now. We know it's there.
Well, there's been such a big concern in the auto glass industry about proper windshield installation and the adhesive and all the stuff, which is amazing. Like there's been, the focus on education over the last 5 years has, risen dramatically, which is the best thing ever. But I think you're probably going to see more people have accidents where they're liable from calibration as opposed to not installing a windshield properly. especially over the next
Sure.
5 to 10 years.
Yeah, windshields have been around a while. It took a while to get trained in those.
Right.
This is all brand new, and it is moving way faster. Everybody is in the lottery to hit the autonomous driving jackpot.
Right.
So the technology is moving faster than we can keep up with.
Yeah, even now, I just read an article where a Tesla owner, it's called, I can't remember the exact phrase, but it's kind of like it's like a park assist feature, but you can be outside the car with your cell phone and do it. So he was in his office, he looks down, he sees he's getting ready to get a parking ticket. The meter lady is working her way towards his car. So he just backs it up into the other spot. And it's like, I mean,
Remote control.
Yeah, I mean, from his cell phone.
Yeah,
So, I
it's
mean, this
crazy.
stuff is no joke. It's coming. Like,
Yeah.
there are some things that you could say if it was a feature that you could watch satellite TV in all your cars. That's just something that may happen and may not. It's a luxury. This is happening. It's here. It's
is.
been here. And you're not going to get away from it.
Yeah, no, it's moving so fast. I said the autonomous driving lottery. I mean, every day you look at these articles, and everybody's getting in and investing on this. And they're looking at, once cars can drive themselves and people don't have to worry about transportation anymore. Somebody's going to be the leader of that, and they're all kind of banking on it. And where we are now is we're kind of in that sensor stage. Like, we're in the stage where, what all can we mount to a vehicle to help us drive that car? There's many other levels to this that we're going to have to get through that are going to take some more time, but that's where we are, level like 1 and 2, where we're really testing out these sensors, and can we see these objects? Can we react to them?
Yeah, and that was, going back to the automotive glazing conference that was up in Detroit. These guys are like MIT, PhD,
Sure.
like the engineers, and they just plain, out and said there's no better place to put a sensor than behind a piece of glass on the interior of the car,
Right.
because you don't have to worry about the elements, dirt, dust. So until someone comes up with that magic thing that they can pop out of a roof or a hood, behind the glass is going to be the best place for this stuff.
Well, we have information of what's coming down the road 5, 6, 7 years from now, and it's multiple sensors on the inside of the glass. It's sensors on the back glass.
Oh, yeah.
So things are coming.
It's not
more.
getting easier.
Correct.
So let's talk about the website. So your website's up and running.
It's in infancy stage. Yeah, we have a lot of goals with the website, and things are kind of fluidly moving right now. Again, it's moving so fast. Sometimes our focus is shifted right when we're in the middle of something else. And our goal is we want to try to hub kind of people together that are going through this process. The process I went through a couple years ago. A lot of folks I know went through it then, but a whole bunch of folks are getting ready to go through it.
Right.
And we want to give a place where these people can come together and not only share their information to help each other, but also gather information from folks that have already been through it.
And talking about that, shared information, your form.
Yeah.
Like, I'm waiting for this thing to go live, and
Yeah.
it looks like soon, right? Within
Within the next 10 days, we're really hoping. We're putting a few extra weeks in it just because we want to make sure that it doesn't come out of the gate and that it's popular and that it has problems.
Right.
So we want to make sure this thing's ready to roll when we put it out there.
and which I've seen it, and there's no problem. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a good format, but
Yeah.
I can understand the caution there,
Yeah.
But I'm really looking forward to the form, because it seems, I love social media, but it can just kind of get out of hand sometimes. Where usually with forums, it seems to be a little more mature, respectful. I hate to use that phrase.
I hear you.
I mean, because I love the social media, and I actually love that banter sometimes back and forth with the guys on there. But
Well, in the forum, what we're hoping to do, again, and we say hoping because, we got to get it put together and get the people then put together with it.
Right.
But what we're really hoping for is, one of the goals I have is I want to divide the forum up. I don't want you to have to come in and have a specific goal in mind and you have to sift through everything. We'd like to have maybe the general area, but we'd also like to have maybe technical areas, maybe tool areas, maybe
Right.
specific brands. And we want to invite those brands to be a part of it because, again, it's like this disconnect. Like, what do I do? Who do I use? How do I get information? You know, if we can have your, say, I wouldn't even want to call them a competitor. I mean, people that are doing the same thing as you in another state, helping you, right? Sharing their, and then connect the manufacturers to that.
That's what one of the things I do appreciate about social media and being in that really large auto glass group is someone comes on there with a question about, say, adhesive. Man, there is a manufacturer, you know, a rep that answers that thing like that. I mean,
that's our goal. That's our goal. You know, we want to be able to help people if they don't get that answer right away. We want to be able to share our experiences as our experiences and our opinions.
Right.
But we certainly want to attract the manufacturers because, you know, that's always a tough one. I mean, it's taken me a lot of work to get in with these folks. And, you know, you can't really have everybody be in with them. I mean, so creating this forum, we're excited about it. You know, we're looking at it as not only an opportunity to help folks and to bring them together with manufacturers, but we're also just looking at the idea of it would just be a huge amount of information. And if I had a problem with a car that 5 other shops had the same problem, we can kind of trend these issues and say, hey, look, this could be a problem across the board. Let's get some information on it and let's get it out there to help everybody else.
Right. And that potentially could go back to the tool manufacturers to say, hey, we need to put a note or update this. And I mean, I think like I said, I really love what you're doing with it, and I think the possibilities are endless. And you know, knowing you personally and professionally, I know it's heading in the right direction and in a good direction. You're not. I don't know exactly how to say this, but you're not trying to get money from people. You're trying to help the industry and also make a living. But not you're not nickeling and diming to everyone.
Well, and obviously, I have to. You know, I look at the last 2 years and the amount of help and text messages and phone calls and visits and all these different things that I've done. I want to be able to help everybody possible. But sometimes, you know, plane rides get expensive and hotels get expensive. And when they're on my own dime, it's you know, it's an issue sometimes. But overall, I think this will be a way for me to help a lot more people, bring other people that can help into the mix, so it's not just on me, and really just try to bring everybody together in a platform that, you know, is it going to cost me some money? It is, but I think that it's a relatively small investment, really, for the amount of people that are going to get benefit from this.
Yeah, and this guy's got 2 daughters in college, so
right. Hopefully one will go for a web program.
Any day now, I'm waiting to see this cup on the corner of like 526. You know, like donate some change for
that's right.
The 2 kids in college fund.
That's right. We'll calibrate for food. That's me.
I like that one. I like that one. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to seeing the forum come out. So first of all, I guess tell them what your website is so they know where to go to find the form. And
so ADASservices.com is the website, and you know, we have most of what we want up. We don't have the content up yet, and certainly it's going to be in the next 30 days tops.
Yeah, and that stuff takes time. I mean, you know, talking about that firsthand, I mean, you just can't like create content and have a full website the first day it launches. I mean,
and a lot of the content's going to come from the participation of the users, you know, so it's really going to be something that feeds itself. Primarily right now, we want to make sure it's a solid platform, that it's secure, that it's safe, and that, you know, when we put it out there, we don't we're going to have an influx of people right off the bat, and we don't want any one of those folks to feel like this wasn't fast enough or this didn't do what I wanted it to do. So once we get it released, what we're hoping is the forum is really going to kind of take on a life of its own. It's really going to give us some direction on the content. But what we're going to try to get on there right off the bat is, you know, just some general information through whether it's articles and blogging, whether it's through video content. We actually have a couple of tool manufacturers that are going to participate. You know, we're going to make sure people know what's out there to help them.
And speaking of that, will people be able to actually buy calibration tools from them?
So we definitely have that available now. We're working on the whole line. Again, we want to make sure that if there are solutions out there, that we can share all of the solutions out there and that we're not leaving anybody out. So obviously that takes a little bit of time,
right?
Especially maybe there's some folks out there that don't allow people to distribute their tool, and I'm encouraging them to,
Right.
offer it out that if this comes a place where people are going to come looking, let's get it on there.
I like it. Like
yeah.
the Sam's Club of calibration. There you
Nice,
go.
nice.
There's your new
Yeah,
tagline.
right.
No fee for that. But,
Just me and the Waltons,
Doug,
just hanging out.
Yeah, Doug's Club Calibration. Your one-stop shop for everything calibration.
Well, we certainly hope that we can, put the major tool providers together on here. And then we want to obviously have links to all of their educational material. We want to, if they have gaps in their educational material, we may be calling on you in your studio to help us get through some of that, maybe create some, kind of fill those gaps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where the concern with some of the distributors of some of the newer tools is that, boy, like we're going to ship this thing with all these parts and devices to people.
I
And
know
they're going to pack it up and ship it back to us.
So that's where I know that you've helped some people directly on that.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're sending someone something that just, it's overwhelming at first, but when you really learn, it's just
Yeah.
like driving a car. When you
Sure.
first sit behind a steering wheel, it's like, oh my goodness, there's
Yeah.
so much stuff going. And then a week later, you're like, yeah, you're driving.
Sure.
So I can understand that point of view where
Yeah.
people are like looking at it, maybe if they're just feel a little overloaded, they say, I can't use this and send it back.
Yeah, yeah. So when I talk about the gaps that there might be there is inevitably going to be gaps. I mean, some of these manufacturers of these tools aren't in the United States, and maybe their primary core of representatives don't speak English.
Right.
It's one of those things where there's still going to be a great solution. We just need to make sure that we are helping folks. Just if I have to unpack something that takes me 8 hours and it should have took me 1, I want to share everything to save you that 7 hours.
Right.
So we'll get more people than just me doing that. We'll get other folks that are at the front end of this, and hopefully we'll feed that content to really help people make really informed decisions, not buy a tool and then end up sticking it in the corner and wasting their money on it. So first and foremost, we want to give them the information as whether or not they even should be calibrating.
Right.
And then once they decide, hey, this is for me or this isn't for me, how are you going to handle that? Right? If it isn't for you from the investment standpoint, then, what are my options? Are there
Right.
other people out there that could do this service? And then, if you decide you want to do it in-house, we want to, provide you with the tools and the resources and maybe the training or support that would be necessary to get you into it.
Yeah, and it's there's definitely a cost factor, as it is with any business.
Right.
However, when I see, your return on, calibrating for each car,
Yeah.
it's pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's, obviously can't talk dollars here, but it's worth the investment. If you say to yourself, I still want to be in this industry a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road,
Yeah.
this is certainly a great investment.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing about it is, we can help you quantify that. It's like you don't have to just wing it or throw whatever amount of money
Right.
at something, guessing and hoping. I mean, we could sit down and we could look at your vehicles and say, hey, you've had this many opportunities. We know that this many opportunities would generate this revenue. This is what you got to generate to pay for this. And you can find out if it's something I just want to handle in-house so that I don't have to inconvenience my customer. Can I break even? Or can you actually generate positive revenue and add to your profitability?
And I would say if a lot of companies sat down and looked at
Yeah.
how many they have replaced and didn't do the calibration, they would probably get a little queasy and be like, wow,
Yeah.
we should have done this
and
years ago.
One of the things I found fascinating about this is a couple things. First, to make a point, everybody in this country that has multiple locations that is in the auto glass business for the long run are calibrating, period.
Right.
Nobody is not calibrating.
Right.
From that standpoint. When you look at some of the smaller shops that are on the fence, like, hey, could I do enough to pay for this? It's always interesting how we don't do enough. We're letting 2 or 3 go. Well, I had a branch within a company I do a lot of work for, out of town branch.
Right.
We were deciding how to handle that branch because it was about 3 hours away from me. And, we only do 2 or 3 a week. Well, we decided to set them up with a system and train them. And then all of a sudden they're doing 8 a week, 9 a week. And I don't
Right.
think it was magic that, I just think it was, again, one of those things where when we're not doing it and we're not sure, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not going to happen to me, that kind of thing. And
Right.
and I've always found that whatever they say is at least 50% lower than actually what their opportunities
Yeah,
are.
and for me, certainly the financial aspect is very appealing, and that's really nice. But
Yeah.
for me, the biggest thing, and I mean, I'm surprised I have any hair left at all. That especially isn't gray. It's getting there, but
right.
this is I can
good.
wear this and still look cool 20 years from now. But the responsibility.
Yeah.
So you're just telling people to leave your shop and you need to go have it calibrated.
Yeah.
So now they're leaving, and it's such a. I mean,
Yeah.
if you think signing that piece of paper is going to get you out of any liability, you should really dig back into the Auto Glass Digest, I think like December of 2015 newscast, where we spoke to a very prominent attorney about.
Ignorance isn't an excuse for this, right? I mean, we
Right.
know this now. We're doing a podcast on this.
Right.
Like, this is here. And, you can't say, I just didn't know enough or whatever. And so it really is time for folks to make a decision. That time came a couple of years ago, and it's not too late. I mean, the collision industry is facing the same thing right now.
Right.
Yeah. So, we're dealing with one sensor. They're dealing with all the sensors, right? And I still talk to collision shops that don't really understand this at all. They're not doing anything. Yeah. So it's a big deal. I mean, it's here. The tool manufacturers are obviously committed to it. Position statements have changed with automotive manufacturers. So
Right.
it's not going anywhere, and we need to get on this and figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, collision shops too, auto glass companies, like it's here, people. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and let's talk about just the auto glass for a minute, because I think this is a good point. The auto glass business, I was in the auto repair business, and for a long portion of my career in auto glass, I
Right.
worked in collision shops doing auto glass. And, it is one of those things where when you're in the auto repair business, I mean, you got a $30,000 aligner, you got a $15,000 wheel balancer,
Right.
and tire changer. You've got scan tools. You've got all this money in the body shops. You got frame machines, maybe
Yeah.
aligners. I mean, these
Paint
shops,
booths, spray
paint
booths. Yeah, I
it's
mean,
unbelievable. I mean, the amount of investment that you have in the equipment to do this work, and the auto glass business has never really had that, right? I mean,
Right.
anytime it's usually a hand tool, something like that. So, that's one thing that the auto glass industry is going to be a little more challenged than the other two industries, because, in the other two, we're used to having to buy and invest in equipment and maybe lease it over time and compare that to the amount of work we can do to pay
Right.
for that. So if the auto glass business can get over that a little faster than it seems to be now, it's a part of doing business. And, when you do a windshield, again, we're not talking pricing, but you got a cost of good, right?
Right.
You got to buy the windshield in order to install it.
Right.
Well, in this case, you got to buy the piece of equipment, then you have no cost of good after that.
Right.
So, again, we can quantify it. We can say it's a good value, a good investment, and our customers leave safer. It's more convenient, so it's good all the way around.
Yeah, and I definitely, even if you don't think you can afford it, so like a dynamic, I mean, that equipment is certainly a lot less than for a static.
Correct.
So maybe people should look at just doing those or something
Yeah.
to get into it. If you don't have a shop, static is, I mean, that's, I don't
That's a
really
tough
know.
one.
I don't
Right.
unless you have a friend that's letting you borrow its place or something. I don't really
Yeah.
could see that could happen. I mean,
Yeah. Statics are always going to be the biggest challenge. Tool manufacturers are making some bold statements that, brick and mortar shops are going to be the ones that are here for the long term. People that make these investments and have this space to do this work. We're finding in the auto glass industry, as we always do, some pretty, the ingenuity level is high.
Right.
We're starting to see like potential mobile frames and stuff like that.
Right.
There are things coming to help the automotive glass industry in their mobile business, but it is also, to me, it's an opportunity, especially if you have a shop and you're doing a high percentage of mobile. This is really a safety opportunity for you to bring the car in shop where you don't have to worry about weather. You can do a safer job. You can do it more ergonomically. and you can make more money. So, having this technology doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. It is going to be tough on the guys who are mobile only, but they can still go into the dynamics and, form a relationship with someone that can do the statics.
Right. And we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to kind of wrap up. But I know there's definitely a few more things that you want to talk about, so we'll make sure we get everything covered up, and we'll be back in a minute.
All right, thanks.
Are you looking for a windshield setting device that not only saves stress on your body, but is designed to set the windshield back to the exact factory location? Rolodeck is the only premium setting device that attaches to the vehicle without relying on suction cups. It also adjusts to the windshield being replaced for a precise factory alignment with the replacement. Now available at most auto glass suppliers, or visit Rolodeck.net for instructional videos and purchase options.
Welcome back to Auto Glass Digest Talk.
All right, so something that I get asked a lot, and I know people come up and approach you and ask you, since we're pretty much auto glass guys,
Right.
what falls under that ADAS bubble that's outside of the windshield?
Well, yeah, so what the collision shops are dealing with, in the front bumpers, obviously, there is a lot of front bumper repairs going on, and that's where all of your radar sensors live for, say, a forward collision, maybe more of a convenience item like adaptive cruise control.
Right.
But this is where these devices live. Sometimes they live behind the bumper. They will have access panels here and there, but a lot of them live right behind the bumper. So
I like how they tuck it in the emblem, like Mercedes and stuff. Like it's
right
in
behind
emblem.
it. Yeah. Toyota, Lexus is doing that. So, primarily these are the radar devices. Most of the companies are using a actual radar, like a radio wave technology, versus, say, a LiDAR, which we've heard about. These are light detection and ranging. They can bring back a little better image, but they're so expensive to put in right now. They're on the way. I mean, that's how people are getting the autopilot and stuff like that now.
And there's applications for that I don't know, computer novice guys would love to have.
Yeah.
I mean, you might start seeing people stealing those off the
Yeah,
cars.
it's funny.
Because they are pretty expensive, but
Yeah.
the capabilities of
Yeah.
the things are ridiculous.
So they, so in the front of the car, you're dealing with that. On the side of the car, like Honda has a real popular mirror that has a camera built into it, and it's a popular repair because, quite frankly, people are always knocking their mirrors off.
Especially
running in the
downtown
mailbox.
Charleston. Give me a break. Come on. If you,
Yeah, so they have a camera in there, and these devices have to be re-aimed. I mean, it's not as complex of a process in some of them, but they have to be re-aimed. And then, of course, in the rear of the car, which this is one of the things that's interesting, doing a lot of windshield cameras looking out in front of the car, we talk to the customers about. We're explaining to them that this is the device that lets you know if you're leaving your lane or not. Well, it's fascinating how many people think that that's the blind spot. The orange light in your mirror.
Right.
You got a car next to you, you go to move, and it beeps at you, right? So you think, I'm leaving my lane and it's warning me. Whereas it's a totally different system. It's done off of, again, another radar device in the rear corners, either in the bumper or quarter panels. So these devices have to be re-aimed. All the processes they're not exact, but they're all similar. They may have different types of targets. From a radar perspective, it may be just something metal that can, bounce the radar wave back towards the car. But it's similar as to you have to place it in a certain spot. You have to go through a certain process on the scan tool.
And essentially on some of those side view mirrors, an auto glass technician could run into that. And that technically is calibrated.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a target with
Absolutely.
that, right?
Sure do. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, one of the Hondas, like the Odyssey minivan, when you turn your right blinker on, it gives you, that camera over there gives you kind of a blind spot shot of that side of the car. And that calibration is actually done through the radio of the car, and you don't even need a scan tool.
Wow.
It's one of the first videos I ever found.
Free tips there, people. Yeah. You can charge for a calibration just by turning it to your favorite top 40 station.
Yeah, nice. So, there's all different kinds of devices. But, I mean, you think about the threat from the collision standpoint, just minor fender benders, and what it can do to these devices, and how these devices are somewhat hidden. Maybe a body man, doesn't even look at it, doesn't see that it's bent in the bracket or something like that. So again, you want to calibrate to make sure it's still aimed like the manufacturer intended.
I think my two favorite outside of the windshield are blind spot and adaptive cruise control. I mean, that stuff is just so nice. Like, not that I'm lazy, but it is nice to know if you put your right turn signal on to change lanes, there's, if there's someone there or not.
Yeah, sure. It does.
Which I got to imagine that percentage wise, that's got to be pretty high up on insurance and cost. Like changing lanes and, hitting people, especially Charleston, man, no one knows how to drive here.
Surprisingly, it's not.
Really?
Correct. It's not. And you look at these things, the one thing you got to look at is not just the volume of incidents that it avoids, but the tragedy of the instance in a sense.
Right.
So if I'm doing 75 and I veer out of my lane into oncoming traffic, I didn't use the word 75 on purpose, because if you're doing over 65 and you go into head-on collision, there's 75% chance you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
These are the big ones.
So
right?
dollar-wise, it's not that significant, but they're probably number-wise.
Could be. The hardest part right now is we're in this transition, right? Because what the insurance companies know for sure is how much their repair costs are increasing because of these devices.
Right.
And what they haven't been able to quantify is, how much is it saving us in maybe, injury and liability, bigger picture stuff over longer terms. So there's going to be this time where, the repair cost is going to make these premiums rise until they can justify the reduction in, the savings from down the road.
And then they still won't lower the insurance company, once it goes up, it doesn't come down.
I would love to work with insurance companies in the future, so I have no comment on that. Thank you.
And I would too, but they probably wouldn't like to hear a majority of what I have to say. But, this brings up a really interesting topic here. At some point, the insurance industry, when it comes to calibration and OEM windshield and the dealer calibrates, that's through the roof, but they kind of push back a little bit on calibrations. Sure. Well, theoretically, the insurance companies need guys like you and company, auto glass guys to do it, because if it goes to the dealer, it's way more than what they're paying you.
Right.
So they're going to have to come up with a happy medium, because if all these cars went to the dealerships, you talk about their cost for that repair.
Yeah.
That windshield just went through the roof.
Right.
Before it hit the second story, with us, the auto glass industry doing it. But if it goes to the dealer, I mean, that's a whole nother.
And the cost is compounded because the dealer won't touch it without an OEM glass. And we all know what that means, right? We make less of a margin. They still pay more. Then the calibration has to happen after that. So, part of calibration in the auto glass industry is, also being able to utilize the windshield that is best for your business, your client, and quite frankly for the insurance company.
Yeah, and to back up a little bit, you mentioned something earlier that I find, and we've talked about this before, customers don't even necessarily know what these features are. So then when you go in and you tell them it has to be calibrated, and they're like, I don't even have that, but they do, or they say, before this didn't work. I mean,
huge challenge.
I think this is where people's your skills come in and how to talk to a customer and explain, because just like with the windshield, where you put the windshield in and then 3 months later they say it's leaking, and it's because there's it looks like a squirrel's nest under the cowl panel.
Sure. Well, again, so not to circle back to the old website, but I've been working primarily with Glass Pro throughout all of their branches in South Carolina.
Which, kudos to them,
because they got on it early.
They got in early. Paul has done an amazing job with this. And it goes back to lining yourself who you're surrounded by. So if you surround yourself with people and companies that care, you're a lot better off than just people who are looking to make a dime.
Sure. Well, the volume that everything I've been able to learn about calibrations has just been through the volume that I've been able to do through Glass Pro.
Yeah, and just to kind of clarify,
Yeah.
Glass Pro in Charleston, South Carolina,
Correct.
with Paul Heinauer.
Correct. Yeah. Is there any other Glass
There,
Pro?
there are.
Oh,
there are.
there
yeah,
is?
Yeah.
I didn't think there
But
was.
yeah. But this is the Glass Pro Inc. here in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah. So through that volume, been able to learn a ton.
Right.
And so what happened, and this is kind of why, maybe why I got into the website. Like, that's not my world, right? Digital is not my world. But I look at, so let's say Glass Pro has 50 people answering the phones. I don't know how many they have, but whatever.
Right.
So let's say they have 50 people answering the phones, and now we're expecting, all 50 of those folks to understand this new technology that I'm doing a huge volume of, and I don't completely understand.
Right.
So when I think about them, I think, I should do a video for them. Like, that would be great. Like, they have some downtime, they have training time, whatever they have it at Glass Pro, do a video. Help them understand the different systems. So when they do get the call, maybe, hey, ever since you calibrated my camera, my rear camera doesn't show anymore. Right now, they're like, oh, well, sorry, let's get that fixed for you. When in fact, it's like their power button was turned off on the radio, or they were mistaken blind spot. So I think that part of what I hope to do with the website is the ideas that we've used to try to help the masses within a company like that we can just plug that in and let it help other companies.
And, there's some things going on that seem to be getting customer service representatives a little more respect. But you can go back to some early podcasts. I praise those customer service representatives. They are the front line of your company.
Right.
So if someone calls you and that customer service rep just does a horrible job of explaining stuff, you don't get that chance to have that super installer do his job.
Right.
So I think it's going to be explaining how the calibration works is the same thing they're going to have to go through with drive away time.
Yeah.
If you're not explaining it properly and you don't know or sound like you know what you're talking about, it raises doubts in the customer's mind. They may call someone else and say, well, this company said this.
Well, and keep in mind, in this, you call somebody else, they're going to say, oh, you don't need to be calibrated, because they're not doing it.
But see, it backs up to that drive away time. Like other people, oh, well, you can drive it in 30, this was years ago, but you can drive it in X amount of time. When we do it, you can drive right off. And it's like, they're saying that because they're trying to get the sale where, once you get them on the phone, it's your job to convert that and be, knowledgeable about your products and services.
Well, and this is a complex subject. So, one of the things I was concerned about was I felt like maybe we created so many different opportunities to talk about the liability and the warranty of this process that we were actually scaring the people into understanding their systems. And so they would leave the parking lot. They haven't even gone over 3 miles per hour yet. And it's like, oh, it's not warning me I'm leaving my lane. Well, it doesn't work till you're above 35. Let's be patient. Let's drive it in the conditions that you're used to, and see how it works then. Because, it is one of those things. I had to sit back and wonder, like, why all of a sudden? And I looked at the process, like, in the scheduling process, oh, we can't do that mobile. We have to have it in shop. You got to have a closed environment, control the lighting, right? Going to have to leave it for most of the day because my calibration guy has to come in at, step by step by step by step. And at the end of the process, they really didn't know they even had these features. Now they come out of it going, boy, I better make sure these features are working right, because obviously they're important.
And if they didn't know they had it before, they probably don't know how to operate it right. So you're getting that phone call. And
we've given a lot of ADAS lessons to vehicle owners. Lots of them.
I can imagine. I mean,
we know when we're finished with a vehicle, it shows it's successful. If it's not, obviously we're going to keep going until it is. And then we test drive every car to make sure the system's working. So we have a confidence level when we get a phone call back. We haven't had it like we put it back together great and it fell off going down the road and now it doesn't work. We haven't had that. It has been almost 100%. It's been just miscommunications, misunderstanding of their system, So that's been a big part of it. And the more we can get the customer service folks to understand that, the front line, like you said, the easier we can communicate it on the front end. And then if there is a question, the quicker we can kind of, stop that question from evolving into something bigger than it is.
Yeah, and I think I'll call the industry out. I think the industry did a horrible job of educating customers on drive away time, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And this is now a new thing that the consumer needs to be educated about.
Yeah.
And hopefully there are things that come about that kind of help with that, because
Yeah, well, I think so. I mean, think of it this way. How many automotive manufacturer commercials did you see about windshield installation and drive away time when we were facing that?
yeah,
0.
yeah.
How many commercials today do you see the car stopping, the car steering, the pilot assist,
Eric, yeah.
magically driving between two trucks like Disney World? And I mean, it's every single commercial.
And okay, so how about this? The little swipe your foot under the trunk, is that an ADAS? And that's just a sensor, huh?
It's not.
Because
No,
boy,
that's-
Ford loves that. It's like, I can think of a lot of other stuff to tout about my vehicles other than just swipe your foot under the bumper and the hatch opens.
Well, Ford customers have their hands full quite often. Yeah. So
I can't.
no, we're not going down
I'm
that
not going
road.
to say it. I love Ford, and actually, the engineers that I've spoken to and met, they actually are great people. But
well, it's important when you have your hands full to be able to open doors.
yeah,
So
that's true. Or a baby.
Yep. Driver's assist. Hatchbacks opening on their own doesn't fall under a driver's assist.
The rear camera does, correct? Isn't that?
Yeah. So a rear camera would fall, in my opinion, because rear cameras are standard equipment because of the problems we've had of people. Unfortunately, the tragedies that have happened where children and stuff behind these vehicles and you can't see them. So, yeah, I would definitely say it's part of the safety system.
Yeah, and I've seen various lists, and some people list it as.
Yeah.
And I read an article about how automotive manufacturers were kind of cheating a little bit, because was it by 2018 or 19 you had to have at least one or two.
They're talking about like crash ratings and things. You have to have a one for standard equipment.
Right, right. And they were kind of sneaking that in under that, and it's like, come on, everybody has that.
I think they're really going to push for the forward collision to be that one at minimum. But I mean, even Honda has said that it's either 2022 or 24, like the whole package will come in every Honda, and that's not just forward collision. That's lane keep assist. That's everything, adaptive cruise control, blind spot, the whole package. So by then there'll probably be more devices added into that package to make it even better.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is, anything that participates in the safety of the driver and the safety of folks that you're driving around. These, to me, anything you can help, create an awareness, give you a quicker warning, maybe give you a nudge of the steering wheel. Obviously, it's good. I mean, there's going to be that time where you're going to depend on it too much.
Right.
And the car manufacturers have done a nice job of sensing the steering wheel if your hands aren't on it, or if you haven't steered the car for a while.
Tesla, that's required, and finding out. Of course, anytime something happens with them, it makes headlines. But then you go back, and after they research, it's like they didn't even have their hands on the steering while. Like, you know what?
Yeah, can't be dependent upon it like that.
That Suburban that I drove was very like vibrating on the seat, you know, on the left side and right side, and then like the big, warning heads-up display on the windshield. I mean, it's really cool stuff. I mean,
yeah, and some of the higher end vehicles are utilizing that, the vibration of the steering wheel or the seat or things like that. Because the warning tone can get a little monotonous. I mean, you might shut it off just because you don't want to hear it anymore. So if you can get the warning across, still without irritating or aggravating the driver,
right.
then obviously that'll help the system stay on more often. And if it's not on, can't help you.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like an airbag, right? I mean, this isn't something that that the manufacturer's controlling. At this point, these are assistance items. These are things you can turn on and off. These are passive devices. So, it's important to know also.
Well, it's definitely been a huge pleasure getting you in here, helping get that word out to everybody.
I'm always standing at your door waiting. I don't know. You just never have time for
Every
me.
morning I come in like, no time today, Doug. Not today. Not
All
today.
right. I'll go do my calibrations.
Yeah, it's more like, hey, what part of the world are you in right now with this whole like calibration thing you got going on?
Yeah, that's good.
But I'm going to put you on the spot. So
Okay. Do it up.
we need to have a Q&A with not only your social media, but mine.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say we're going to do it live, although, I would love to do it live, but I don't want to put you in that big of a spot. But we'll have some people call in and take social media questions and get you to answer them and kind of.
Happy to do it. When I was thinking about this podcast in general, I'm thinking, boy, I really want to talk about stuff that's relevant to people. And, I'm making the decision what's relevant to people. So if we can put it in that format, I think it'd be great.
Well, I'm helping, and my opinion is the only one that matters.
That's right.
And,
Yes.
So.
That's good. That's good.
But no, for sure, we'll work on something. We'll find a date when you're not like saying flying around the globe or something. Yep. But we'll pick a date soon.
Yeah,
and then
sure.
Just
before the end of the year.
Before the end of the year.
Yep. It's going to be our Christmas present to anybody.
There you go.
Who wants
And
to get...
I'm going to double spot you and say you got to bring something to give away. So you have to give away something. We don't know what it is, but
I've got some Auto Glass Digest stuff at my house. I'm happy to give it
like
away.
a mug or something. Yeah, like you haven't even drank.
This mug isn't enough.
If you, yeah. All right.
Yeah, we're too far.
But we'll definitely do that because I think helping dispel some of those myths, answering the questions that people have, and just interacting. I love interacting with everybody out there. So. But we'll definitely do that. Maybe we can do it like maybe a Saturday or something like that when everybody is not working and the guys aren't trying to drive around. And Lord knows I don't want people. Yeah. You can listen to the podcast while you're driving around, but I don't want you looking at video or trying to ask questions.
Yeah, we'll do it.
But
sounds good.
And speaking of the podcast, we are now on iHeartRadio, Spotify.
Nice. See, I was just waiting until you got all those credentials.
Yeah, I take care of the guests first, and then
I was just holding out. I was just holding out.
I like to throw a little plug out there for Auto Glass Digest on our own podcast.
I know. Like 4 years ago, when you asked me, there was like a tin can with a string going out to a parking lot. I was like, we're just not ready for this yet.
Yeah, but iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, which hosts our podcast, iTunes, Google Play. You can find it everywhere, and I've been talking about this one forever, which to me is the coolest, but Amazon Alexa. So hopefully this will be the first one on Amazon Alexa.
Be good.
So it'll give you something to listen to while you're out there riding around between jobs. I know I used to spend, when I was doing the long distance stuff, 4 or 5 hours a day sometimes in the car, and it gives you something better to listen to than like top 40. But for sure, so check those out. We're going to have all the ADAS services, the website and social media linked on autoglassdigest.com, as well as all the outlets to listen to the podcast. So, Doug, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
We'll definitely get you back in here soon.
All right. Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Auto Glass Digest Talk, the industry's #1 podcast. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast to catch every episode at autoglassdigest.com.